Hello, 3rd Congressional District Democratic Party members. Hello, Chair Garcia. Hello, Vice Chairs Swanhorst, Christofferson, Lawler, and Wolf, Treasurer Balls, Admin Rep Heller, and Secretary Reich. Thank you all of the county party leaders, the activists, the members that power the 3rd Congressional District. This is your moment. This is the year when we're going to show the entire country that the voters of Western and Central Wisconsin are not going to accept representation by an insurrectionist, are not going to accept the idea that the voters who believe in common sense and decency and freedom would have someone who would be part of Mike Johnson's terrible, disastrous, incredibly unproductive, and extreme Republican House caucus. You're going to show the country what we can do, what you can do. And speaking for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, we're with you every step of the way. This is going to be an incredible election year. You showed in 2023 what's possible in a state Supreme Court race. Now we're going to show how many state legislative districts in so many parts of the 3rd CD we can flip. You can make up the majority in the state assembly, and in the state senate, we're putting down a down payment to flip to a Democratic majority in 2026. In the House, you're going to be part of the historic shift away from this terrible Republican majority. In the Senate, you're going to provide the margin of victory for Tammy Baldwin's re-election and the defeat of Californian Eric Hovde. You might think he's got the West Coast of the United States locked up, but the West Coast of Wisconsin is about to give him what for. And in the presidential race, we know that this could come down to a couple of votes per precinct. And I know that you are going to be working your heart out around the clock in every corner of the 3rd CD to send Trump packing and re-elect President Biden and Vice President Harris for another term. Think about how far we've come over the last few years, how totally Republicans controlled our state as recently as this part of 2018, 6 years ago. How much has changed since then? How much we've shown ourselves and the nation what we're capable of. This year is when it all comes together. I can't wait to be with you in person every step of the way to fight to flip the 3rd. I know you've got it in you, and I cannot wait for the celebration on election night when we begin a new era of democracy and decency from our congressional district to our state assembly, to the path to progress in our state senate, to celebrating the fact that we held the US Senate and that we've won another term for a president and vice president who actually believe in democracy, freedom, the American way, instead of those who are trying to tear it down. Let's do this. Have a fantastic CD convention. Go fight, Lynn.
I really want to talk today, though, about how excited I am for the next 6 months. It is going to be a tough 6 months. It's going to be 6 months of a lot of work. But I think we're going to win, and I think that we're going to defeat Jerry Van Orden. I think that we're going to defeat Donald Trump. And I want to remind everyone, when I go up to the state party, when I go to admin committee meetings, here's what I'm constantly reminding the people in the upper echelons of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. 3rd CD is where you will win this election. This is it. This is it. 3rd CD is the only swing district in Wisconsin. That's it. This is the only one. And because of that, this is where you are going to swing voters over and win here. And winning here in the 3rd CD will have national repercussions at almost every level of government. If Joe Biden wins the 3rd CD, he will win Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is where he will win the presidency, just like 4 years ago. So we're going to work for that. We're going to re-elect Tammy Baldwin. And by re-electing Tammy Baldwin, we are going to hold on to the Senate. It's going to be a tough fight, but if you're looking at things going around, it's a tough election year in the Senate for Democrats, but we're doing really well. We're ahead in Montana. Yes. If we're ahead in Montana, we can win here. And we're going to hold on to the Senate. So that's the presidency delivered by the 3rd CD of Wisconsin. That's the Senate delivered by the 3rd CD of Wisconsin. And the Republicans right now control the House of Representatives by 1 vote right now. A single vote. And guess what we're going to do here in the 3rd CD? We're going to kick out Derek Van Orden, and we are going to elect one of the three amazing candidates that we have running for the 3rd CD, any of whom will be a excellent challenge for Derek Van Orden. Remember, Derek Van Orden has made national news 3 times in his 2 years. Once for yelling at teenagers in the Capitol Rotunda. Once for abandoning his responsibilities in the House of Representatives to go and play army in Israel. And third, for yelling, "You lie," during the State of the Union. This is the person that we are competing against, and this is the person we can beat because he does not reflect Wisconsin values and Wisconsin priorities. So, that's the presidency, the Senate, and the House, all 3 down to the 3rd CD. We're going to win it, and we're going to do it together. So thank you so much.
Are you kidding? You offer an elected official a microphone, and we are there. So I'm happy to be here today. I want to talk about 3 things quickly. My name is Representative Jill Billings, and I have the joy of representing La Crosse area with French Island, a little bit of Shelby. My district is changing. Districts are changing in western Wisconsin, and that is exciting because that's going to give us more blue seats. So I'm going to talk about the assembly mostly because we're gonna kick some butt. We're gonna do some good things this time around. So I'm gonna pull out my Senator Feingold map and talk about western Wisconsin. And as William said, so much of what we hope to accomplish is accomplished through western Wisconsin. So you've got the northern part, which is totally been gerrymandered into Republican seats. Now we have a strong Democratic seat up there we know we're going to take back in the Superior area. And we're working our way down. We've got Eau Claire, and we've got Jody Emerson here today who's going to be speaking later. And she's been helping recruit candidates in that area. She had a solid blue district, beautiful blue like mine. And now it's diluted, which is what makes Wisconsin a fair state now, right? Can't pack all those Democrats in one district. We get to kind of be spread out as is natural, and we're going to pick up 2 more seats in that Eau Claire area with the help of you and Jody Emerson. So thank you. Now I'm going to head down to my district in La Crosse, where I had a 63% Democratic district. I would get 66, 68, because thanks to you, I would overperform. But that's ridiculous, right? Who needs a district that is that incredibly blue? Although it was lovely, I could bike around my district in one day. Now, I've got a district that's 54% blue. So my district is La Crosse, the center of La Crosse, and I shoot out across the county. As I'm driving to Madison, I'm driving and saying, I'm still in my district, I'm still in my district, I'm still in my district, and I'm an hour outside of the western coast there into beautiful Monroe County, and I'm looking for help from you. Yes, so now I've got Sparta, Cashton. I have to figure out if the Amish even vote. I hear no, but I don't know. But I've knocked a lot of doors in Sparta for other folks. They've seen me at headquarters, and so I feel excited about actually knocking doors for me in Sparta this time around. And I've already been out at the Deke Slayton Air Museum to deliver a citation the day after that district became officially mine. I was working it already with Senator Paff, and we're going to be there a lot because it's exciting to meet new people and meet new business owners and farmers, and it's going to be an exciting time for us. So that's and then we go all the way down to Platteville. There are pickup seats in between, and we have good candidates. And I want to thank you all, local party members, as we're working to fill those 99 seats, and we want representation from the Democratic Party in every single one of those seats, because we think this year having a strong bottom ticket is going to help Biden and Tammy and people on the top of the ticket. And so we're working it hard, and I know that you have all helped in that recruitment of candidates. Our leadership, Greta Newbar from Racine, we've got Kaylin Haywood from Milwaukee, we've got Lisa Subak from Madison, and then fourth in line is me, because we need a Western Wisconsin voice in leadership in the Assembly. And we've been working hard with all of our members, and we think we've got a good plan. But you all are the backbone of the party. You all here today, whoever comes out on a Saturday, beautiful Saturday, to sit in a tight meeting room with all of us, you are our Sunday, thank you. And a Sunday, yeah. I know. I got to talk to Pastor Mark at English Lutheran and tell him what happened this morning with me. But it's worth it, because I want to be here with you all to say thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. You're the backbone of the party, and we couldn't do it without you. You are the people who knock doors, who make the phone calls, who attend our fundraisers, who spread the good word. And so, as a legislator who's been in office for 13 years, I want to thank you all. You help us do what we can do. And we're going to turn Wisconsin even bluer. Forward, Wisconsin.
You know, it is such an exciting time to be a Democrat in Wisconsin. And it has been a hard time to be a Democrat in Wisconsin for a really long time. But there is new energy, because we see a very legitimate path to the majority this year in the Assembly. Think about that, y'all. I mean, we know that joint finance controls so many things. And if we can flip the Assembly this year, joint finance is 50-50 then. And it is going to be amazing, because, you know, I think as Jill was talking about her area and all that they've had to deal with PFAS in that area, and around our state, we're dealing with that too. We've allocated $125 million to fight PFAS, but the Republicans are refusing to send it out. In my area, we know that we've had some hospitals close. There's $15 million sitting there. It's been there for, I think, 44 days now. And the Republicans are refusing to send it out. People are literally going to die because Republicans aren't doing their jobs. And we're going to hold them accountable November. And, you know, lately we have been saying the path to the majority runs for the Chippewa Valley, because for years we've talked about having a carpool come down from the Chippewa Valley to Madison, and but it's really going to happen this time. We're going to flip the 92nd, we're going to flip the 93rd, there's other seats that we're going to flip. But as I was just kind of scanning through the map, there's legitimately 5 assembly seats that we're going to flip in the 3rd CD. And a lot others that are going to get close. And so my goal, and Tammy's goal, and Jill's goal, and all of us, we want to have every one of these 99 seats have somebody on the ballot, because these districts have changed a lot. 60% of my district is new. And apparently I scared Karen Herdoff, because we were drawn together and she was like, yeah, I don't know about that. So she moved to Withee. So exactly. Bye-bye, Karen. But they are getting to know their new districts as well. And so if we have a candidate in every one of those districts, that keeps them in their district, knocking on their doors, getting to know their people, and they can't gang up on one of us. That's how we flip the Assembly. So I want to thank everybody that has stepped up, whether you're in a moving to blue district, a solid blue district that's new, or especially those people who are in those red districts and are stepping up and saying, you have to show up in order to win this district, because you can't just walk in. And so those people who especially are running in those solid red districts, you're my hero. And also, let's have a little bit of fun making them work for this too. Let's hold them accountable for the crappy votes that they've taken, the lack of representation that they've done, because they do not represent our values. They don't even represent Wisconsin values half the time. They represent what Robin Vos wants them to represent. And he doesn't represent any of us in this room, does he? So that's also been a little fun thing, is Jill, is he on his second possible recall of the year. I can't even keep track of it now. Third, second, I don't know. But it's been kind of fun because apparently the Republicans are saying that Robin Vos isn't conservative enough. So that's their vision for Wisconsin, which is really, really scary. But we are excited. We're going to have a lot of new faces in the assembly this year. We've had a lot of retirees or people who are moving on to other offices. And so this fall, we started and we set up an agenda of what we wanted, our vision for Wisconsin. And it was education. We put out a great workers' rights package. We put out a great higher education package, environmental things. We laid out our path of the bills that we're going to do and what we're going to be working for. And it was a really busy fall as we were getting that out there. But our vision for Wisconsin is something I think you all can be proud of. And so please do your parts in your areas of the third CD, whether it's running for office, supporting somebody who's running for office, continue to aggravate the Republicans. That's always fun. And send them messages about why they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. But when we all work together, that's how we're going to flip enough seats to get the assembly to majority. And then 2 years from now, we're gonna take the state senate, because that's a longer path because of their time frame. But the vision is there, and it started with electing Justice Janet and flipping those maps. And we all did that because of you. So while I'm going to miss some of my colleagues that are moving on to bigger and better things, we're really excited about the fresh faces that we're gonna be getting in. New, exciting, youthful people who represent faces that haven't been represented in Wisconsin before. We've got a Hmong person running for Wausau. There's talk of maybe 1 or 2 Native American people running, and they haven't necessarily launched exactly. I talked yesterday to a Somali immigrant who is possibly going to be running. We want our party and our chamber to be reflective of the faces that are in Wisconsin, and we're really close to it. So I want to thank you all for your support, but it's going to be a long path to November, and we need every single one of you doing everything we can. So thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. And it really is a pleasure to be with you. As soon as I walked in, someone said, you're my adopted member of Congress. I want to let you know you're my adopted congressional district. So Brad Paff and I spent a lot of time together in your district 2 years ago. I went to every campus on district, did a lot of work. Going to do that again this time because we're going to make sure that Derek can go full-time into the acting author business that he claims he is, and we'll help on that. Look, 2024 is going to be a hell of a year. We're going to have a lot of work to do. And after this week, now spring of 25 with the Supreme Court race is going to be also extremely important for the state. But let me just, if I can, break down the fall a little bit with you as I see it, and hopefully how we're all going to be able to work together on things. First of all, top of the ticket, Joe Biden. I mean, we're not going to have a more clear contrast between the two candidates. Joe Biden got so much done just in the little time, the first 2 years of his presidency. He got us out of COVID as a nation as safely as we could. He invested in 4 major bills, building our infrastructure. 4 presidents, Democratic and Republican, talked about investing in infrastructure. Joe Biden got it done. And that means roads and bridges and water delivery systems, broadband. We have seen $1.6 billion alone come to Wisconsin for expanding broadband because of Joe Biden and the Democrats. A bill to make it so that we're making more things in the United States again, things like computer chips. We found during COVID that we only made 12% of the computer chips that we use in this country. And passing the CHIPS and Science Act not only is going to make sure we're making more of those here, but that's leveraged $40 billion of private sector money into constructing factories so that we can hire the tens of thousands of people that are going to do that. And that happened under Joe Biden. And finally, the Inflation Reduction Act that we passed, helping reduce the cost of health care and energy costs for people. This is the most comprehensive legislation yet introduced and passed in Congress to tackle climate change, and that happened under Joe Biden. So we've got a lot to go around and talk about. But we're gonna have to be honest, there's some headwinds too, and we gotta be honest about addressing those. One, look, Joe Biden is an older American, but so is Donald Trump. Joe Biden is using age and experience to get things done. Donald Trump is using it to divide the nation. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to have this conversation with anyone, people who use experience for good things versus not. But we have three other headwinds, and I just want to touch each one briefly. One is inflation, two is the border, and three is Gaza. Inflation, look, we're doing better than most every other country on the planet right now when it comes to inflation, but we're not completely there yet. When we reopened, the entire world reopened after COVID, everyone wanted things, and there was a huge amount of demand and a limited amount of supply. Economics 101, that drove inflation globally. You can't blame Joe Biden for inflation globally, but Republicans certainly are trying to. But that's why he used every lever he had as president and legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act to do just that. Can I just get a quick, how many of you are Medicare eligible age in the room? Just raise your hand. Thanks to Joe Biden, and share this with your peers, just part of that Inflation Reduction Act, maximum $2,000 out of pocket for any kind of pharmaceuticals you need. Capped insulin at $35 for people on Medicare. And we're working to reduce the cost of prescription drugs by negotiating with drug companies who I think have taken us on for far too long and treated us really, really poorly. There is still some corporate gouging going on. There's no question, and the president's still trying to address that. But when you compare us to anywhere else on the planet, we have a really good story to talk about. The border. I'll tell you, the border is clearly a mess. When I came into Congress, I got elected in 12. In 2013, there was a bipartisan bill that came out of the Senate with 69 votes. When do you hear anything coming out of the Senate with 69 votes? It had extra protections at the borders. It had a pathway to citizenship for aspiring Americans. It did much of what needed to happen. And John Boehner refused to take it up in the House of Representatives. So we didn't fix it. It's been on Congress for decades to deal with this. Then this guy that we all know, Donald Trump, got elected president, and this issue became politicized beyond recognition. But just this year, we tried to do something about it. In the Senate, they tried to pass a bill to address the border. Right now, there's really only one legal pathway to come in to the country because it is a mess, and it's asylum. So everyone, people who legitimately are claiming asylum, and others are coming in that way. But because it's the only non-broken process of coming in, it takes, when you come in that way, I said up to 6 to 8 years. I got PolitiFacted. It's actually an average of 3.9 years to have your case heard. We had a bill that would have put staffing at the border so that if you came here and if it wasn't the right way to come in, within 3 months you have been adjudicated. We would have discouraged people to come to the border who weren't coming for legitimate reasons. And Donald Trump said, no, you can't do it in an election year. And all the Republicans rolled over and had their bellies scratched. And we didn't do anything about the border. And the first 2 years that Donald Trump was president, when he had a Republican majority in the House and the Senate, they did nothing about the border. So if they want to talk about the border, we've got a lot to talk about, and we, again, can't be afraid to talk about their inaction and what they did to kill that bill. And then Gaza. I'll tell you what, we saw what happened again last night. Very fortunately, over 99% of the missiles were taken out before landing, but in a retaliatory strike because Israel had gone after an Iranian embassy in Syria. Look, many of us have said enough is enough, and we want to stop, and we want to cease fire in general. But this is an issue that's having a huge impact. I did rural town halls during the last 2-week period I was home. I was in Mazomanie and Sauk City. I was in Monroe and Edgerton. the number one and two thing people wanted to talk about afterwards, keep talking about, was Ukraine and Gaza. Look, 34,000 people have been killed. There is famine, officially we have called famine, is happening in Gaza. The average caloric intake for someone right now, according to Oxfam in Gaza, is 250 calories a day. We need Congress and the White House to do more, but we do know that under Donald Trump, don't forget Jared Kushner said what great beachfront property that is in Gaza, but that's a headwind. And we're going to have to really make sure we're listening to people and talking as that campaign goes on. Fortunately, on the Senate ticket, we have, I think, America's best Senator, Tammy Baldwin, who's running for re-election. Tammy is very well respected. She gets things done in a bipartisan way, and she has unwavering values. And we have known her for a very long time. I came to the Dane County Board of Supervisors when she was on there. I have watched her over the decades, and she is the same person that she's always been, which to me, I think is one of the best compliments you can give anyone. And her values have been completely solid. Now, she's running against a guy that, I know it's a little bit easy to laugh at times, Eric Hovde, right? I mean, he was named one of the 500 most influential people in Orange County, California, right? It doesn't sound like someone like that necessarily is going to do real well here. But we're a purple state, and it's rumored he could put up to $20 million of his own money in this race. I am quite sure Tammy will be outspent in this election. But let me give you a couple of things to that. One, do you remember when State Senator Kevin Shabilsky ran against Barbara Lawton, because I know many of you from a part of the district here. He outspent her quite a bit, but her values were able to make sure that mattered more than the spending. Just this past cycle, California's primary a month ago, there was a congressional district where someone named David Min was running. He was outspent, I believe it was 5-1, with all the outside money from someone else that was running that had some special interest behind them. And he came through the primary. Again, proving that as a experienced state senator, values matter, people do care about that. Tammy does all of her work the 5 years before election year to get reelected as U.S. Senator. And no matter how hard, and we are going to work hard for her, we're not going to let spending at all be an issue, and we're going to make sure that Tammy Baldwin is, again, our U.S. Senator here in Wisconsin. On state legislative maps, so you're having a number of my friends from the state legislature. I see Jody still here. Good luck with being a grandmother again, hopefully soon today. I can't stress enough how important these new maps are, and what a real opportunity we have to get a majority back in the legislature. And you know what's at risk. We're living in 1849 law for people, for abortion. We have watched the UW system be hit over and over by this legislative majority. We've watched attacks on voting rights, fake electors coming through our state, and so much more. We fortunately got a lot of candidates, good candidates running, and I know that you're going to hear more of that later today. But let's do everything we can do to make sure that the legislature is going to be a bright blue, brilliant Democratic majority this fall, right? So I wanted to save the one that's most important to me for last, which is the 3rd Congressional District. Look, no one in this country knows how bad your congressman is outside of you and me, right? This guy is the worst. I like to say DVO, daily vitriolic offensiveness, right? Like, this guy has got it down. But even though he's a gift in many ways, who exactly is he? I mean, let's just break it down a little bit. So, first of all, he's an insurrectionist. He came to the January 6th insurrection, and then said, no, I wasn't up at the Capitol. And then there's photos of him up on the Capitol grounds. Well, I was up at the Capitol, but I wasn't in the buildings. Look, we recently had one of the January 6th police officers touring through Wisconsin, including the 3rd Congressional District, and I think he really did put it best. I mean, he could have been there to stop the actions. He could have done the responsible thing, and instead, he was part of the mob. And that's who Derek Van Orden is. Now, I know he's a former Navy SEAL, and I appreciate his service to the country. And if you look at his Twitter, his new example is he's also an actor-author. Now, he fails to mention that he's a multiple-time failed small business owner in multiple states, because, he's not from Wisconsin, right? We know that. He did, although to be fair, he did have one of his failed businesses in Wisconsin. So, but let's just dissect this actor-author. So he had a small role in Act of Valor. And then he did a few movies that I think we will never, ever find, because I looked them up and I've never heard of them. He also is an author. He wrote a book on how to be a man. So I bought it for $1.87 on Amazon. The shipping was more than the book. But I can tell you this, guys, it's about lighting fires and throwing punches. But he also has a page in there where he talks about and he brags about that as a member of the Navy, how he went to a nurse with one of his friends and he was bragging about exposing his buddy's genitals to a female nurse. This is Derek. It's in his book, yeah. And I got to admit, this is super embarrassing. I'm going to take an extra 10 seconds to say this. But I didn't want to read his book because I really didn't want to read it. So I went backwards through it to find the passage, and it's just awful. But so here's the problem is, this actor-author, he's not from Wisconsin. He's playing the role of what he thinks someone from the 3rd Congressional District in Wisconsin would do. Now, I don't know if you know this because it hasn't gotten much press, but every single person who goes to a meeting in his office, they get offered beer and cheese. 9:30 in the morning, Boys and Girls Club, you get offered beer. Everyone. And it's bizarre, but I think it's his role playing of what he thinks you would do if you were from Wisconsin and you served in Congress. So anyway, that's the actor-author. 3, he's a hothead. I mean, we have seen it over and over and over. During the campaign, we saw it with the poor library intern in Prairie du Chien, right? He's fighting with Republican members of Congress just in the last couple days on his Twitter. He fights with Democratic members of Congress. He fights, has a drunken fight with teenage Senate pages after he was giving a midnight tour one day. He fights with Department of Defense officials in classified briefings. He's fought with farmers. Recently in a hearing, I don't know if you heard this, but there was someone about trade, and he said to the person, do you think we should be exporting agricultural goods to China? Because isn't that like providing Nazi Germany in 1939 before they invaded Poland goods? Does he understand the economy of the 3rd District? He was a heckler at the State of the Union. Look, that's Marjorie Taylor Greene's job. Derek, don't do that. But this guy has been embarrassing at every level. And finally, he's a bad member of Congress. Look, let me give you one example. There's something called the Dairy Innovation Fund, and that fund helps dairy farmers bring things to market. It was $25 million. Republicans did their version of the budget, cut it to nothing. In fact, they cut it 41%, the entire Department of Agriculture, just to give you an idea. So Derek, in his swift thinking, came up with an amendment to restore $10 million. So essentially what he said to dairy farmers in Wisconsin is, I'm with you 40% of the time. That's 40% of the funding. He doesn't even get what his job is as a member of Congress. So anyway, you know all this. We have to win. Good news, the DCCC is completely committed to the 3rd Congressional District this time. So they don't play in primaries. They stay out of primaries, but it is a 180-degree difference that we're going to see. And last time, I was really frustrated. When I went around with Brad and we couldn't get that money we needed from the federal party, Hakeem Jeffries has personally several times told me they are committed to the 1st and the 3rd in particular in Wisconsin, and several times he's just said the 3rd. So you are definitely on his radar map, and that is very important. So really, just let me kind of finish with this final thoughts of what I think we need to do to make sure that we're beating Derek Van Orden, but also doing what we need to with things this fall. First of all, let's just make sure we do no harm, right? Support the candidate of your choice, but make sure we're not harming anyone else along the way. Joe Biden in particular, if you don't agree with him on every single thing, fine, but all the good stuff I mentioned is still there, and we have to lead with that, and we have to focus on that. I think there's probably most everyone you don't agree with all the time, but this is something we really have to do. Honestly, Tammy, I think we're going to be in good shape. I think you're going to hear a lot about California influence, which will, make that pretty toxic. So if you're from California, sorry. But I think we're going to be all right where we're at with Tammy. In the congressional race, you have 3 great people running. You've got a well-respected state legislator with 12 years of experience and a record of bipartisan accomplishments. You have a former professional political fundraiser and small business owner who started a nonprofit that's doing really good work. You have a real estate and health insurance professional who has a very compelling personal story about healthcare. Let's make sure that we remember the person that we're going to defeat is Derek Van Orden. And that'll make sure that we do defeat him in November. So that's the first point. Second, let's just be, as county parties, as organized and ready as ever to take this on. Fortunately, Ben Wickler, I think, is the best party chair in the country right now. He's been really great at organization and fundraising and things, but it's upon us. We know our counties better than anyone. And whatever we can do to make sure that we're getting the resources you need, let us all know, because the 3rd district is so, so very important, and our get out the vote has to be the best ever. Third, we've got to boost our college Dem units. I see Matthew here. Matthew, stand up. Matthew was just elected the president of the College Democrats. We should be proud from the 3rd CD. Let me just do this for a second. So Eau Claire and La Crosse, you have great units already. Let's just continue to provide them all the support they need. River Falls and UW Stout has some units that need a little love and caring. So Pierce and Dunn counties, let's express that love and caring in every way possible because those campuses are going to be so crucial. To Stevens Point and Platteville, so Portage and Grant counties, we've got to build something, and they don't have it right now. But if we build it by September, and that gives us the rest of April, May, June, July, August to get there, we can have the best turnout at these college campuses. There are more undergraduate students at those 6 campuses than at UW-Madison in my district. That student youth vote is going to matter. But I'll tell you, I used to be the president of the UW-Madison. Back then we were Young Democrats, now they split them, but it's the same difference. These units are so important, and I think for the 3rd CD and for the state victories, they may well hinge on that vote. So will we commit to do everything we can to help our college Dem units? Yes. All right. And then finally, your personal commitment. I know you're all here on a Sunday morning on a beautiful day. What's wrong with you? But thank you for doing that. But everything that we can do in talking to our neighbors and knocking on doors and helping to have organized party units is going to matter so much. So please keep doing that. So are you ready for the campaign of your lifetimes this fall? Are you ready to keep the president, keep Wisconsin blue, pick up the 3rd congressional district, and win back the legislature? And are you ready to make Western Wisconsin the place that delivers these victories for the state this fall? Again, thank you so much for inviting me here today, and I'm going to look forward to spending lots and lots of time with you this fall. You're going to get tired of me at some point, sorry, but we're going to win, and we're going to get a new member of Congress for this district. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Yes, we are going to go to a Dropkick Murphys concert. If you don't know, it's sort of an Irish punk rock band, so it's very cool. But it's an honor to join you for the third CD convention. Thank you, William, and all of the delegates here today and members. This is why we are going to win in November, is because of all of you. And you know, I love this part of the state. I don't know if any of you guys, I've told this before, but my mom grew up in Richland County. Yay! Grew up on a farm between Sugar Grove and Bosstown, if you know where that is. Very, very small, very rural area. She went to a one-room schoolhouse through 8th grade, and her mom was her teacher. And when they sold the farm, my grandparents sold the farm, they moved to the big town of West Salem. So I used to come out here all the time as a child. But you guys are making such a huge difference as we continue to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I told a New York Times reporter just a few weeks ago that we never stop organizing in Wisconsin, and it is true. It is the reason why we defeated Donald Trump and elected President Biden in 2020. It's the reason Governor Evers and I were reelected in 2022. Thank you. And of course, you guys elected Judge Janet in 2023. And now we have fair maps, so it smells like democracy here in Wisconsin. And we're going to make history again. We're going to re-elect Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Tammy Baldwin, and we're going to flip the seat right here in the third CD. We're going to take it back. So it is hard to imagine an election where more is on the line for our families, for our freedoms, our health care. We're talking about the health of our communities to be free from gun violence, the health of our families to have accessible and affordable prescriptions and doctor visits, and our ability to make decisions about our own body. Let me be clear, this election is about our health. We're having to refight battles that we thought were won over 50 years ago. Extremist Republicans are threatening to slash the ACA/Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and enact a national abortion ban. No matter how they lie and how they dance, they are trying to do a national abortion ban. And my mom, now she's almost 80, she keeps telling me, she goes, Sarah, we've already done this before. I'm too old to hold up that banner. Now it's your turn to make sure we don't go back to 50 years ago. So I got my start as a reproductive health educator in the Peace Corps, and I witnessed those devastating effects for women and families who do not have access to full reproductive health care. That includes prenatal care, contraception. They're coming for contraception. They've already come for IVF, and of course, abortion care. I was an emergency room nurse. I saw firsthand the catastrophic outcomes for seniors who could not afford their medications, families who could not get coverage for pre-existing conditions, preventive care from themselves, their children's, mothers and babies who do not have access to pre- and postnatal care. And we can't even get 12 months covered in Medicaid after a woman has a baby here in Wisconsin. Very few states have not done this. Most red states have done this, and we cannot get that through our Republican legislature. So as your lieutenant governor, I am fighting every day for quality and affordable health care, trying to solve our health care workforce shortage, expanding Badger Care, bringing $2 billion home to Wisconsin, making sure our hospitals stay open, and all Wisconsinites have access to the care that they need. So let me be clear, as a mom, as a nurse, as a public health professional, abortion is health care, and health care is a right. You all understand this here, but all voters in Wisconsin get this. As I talk to people across the state, again and again, I hear that this crosses partisan lines. Issues that we are fighting for are why I love being a Democrat, because they are what's right for Wisconsin. We know what's at stake. every person's right to make decisions about their body and their health. We want to make an economy that works for everybody, having family-supporting wages, union jobs, and retiring with dignity. Public education is under attack from kindergarten to our universities, and we finally have a chance to elect a state legislator who actually represent Wisconsinites. This is our democracy that's on the line. All of this is on the ballot. So it is a critical moment in our history. But the good news is we can see who's standing up for us. We know who are standing up for our values. Democrats are busy creating jobs, economic opportunities. And Republicans, what are they doing? They want more tax cuts for their rich friends and big corporations. Democrats want to restore reproductive rights for women, and Republicans are punishing women who get abortions and want to ban abortion nationwide. So we're trying to make our schools and communities safer. Republicans stand with the gun lobby, pushing for more guns in our streets, our classrooms. We're focused on lowering costs for working families. And Republicans want to raise those health care costs, privatize Medicare, leaving millions of seniors with fewer benefits. And we know that the U.S. is counting on Wisconsin. I know you guys know this. The commercials have already started. Have you turned off your TV yet? Because I have. But whatever happens here, enormous implications for Wisconsin, for the U.S. It's going to take every single one of us knocking on doors, making those phone calls, donating, doing what we need to do. And I know each and every one of you is doing that every day. But I know when we fight, we win. So take it from somebody who flipped a district from red to blue. If we can do it in Waukesha County, we can do it all across the state of Wisconsin. We've done it before, we can do it again, and I am so proud to be in this fight with you. So thank you for having me. Can't wait to do it again. Let's finish the job. Thanks.
Well, hello, and thanks everybody for being here. The fact that we have such a great turnout says a lot about the enthusiasm that we have in this area of the state. My name is Steve Doyle, and I represent the 94th Assembly District. And much like the 3rd Congressional District as a whole, my district is deeply purple. In fact, I'm the only Democrat in the state assembly currently representing a Republican-leaning district, and Donald Trump actually won my district both 2016 and 2020. Not going to happen this year, though. Of course, this year, we finally have fair maps. I've been in the legislature since a special election in 2011, and this year is the first time that I have ever had a chance to maybe be in the majority. I cannot tell you how exciting that possibility is. In fact, I wasn't sure I was going to run, and then when I saw what the numbers looked like where we could actually make some decisions, that kind of sewed it up for me. So the idea that we could finally pass legislation instead of doing good things, instead of staving off bad things, really is an incredible possibility for us. We could return rights to our brothers and sisters in labor. We could guarantee a woman's right to her own health care decisions. We could protect our environment, roll back the egregious campaign finance laws that have been put in place. We could improve access to health care, prioritize child care and paid family leave, and so much more. And that's just the first couple of weeks. Democrats in the legislature have been in a permanent minority since the 2011 redistricting, and that has finally changed, and it truly is a new day in Wisconsin. Get this, I now represent a Biden +9 district. However, that's 9 votes, not 9 percentage points. Out of over 30,000 votes cast, President Biden only would have won my new district by 9 votes. So I got a little work ahead of me. Don't ever let anyone tell you that your vote doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is that while the majority is definitely within reach, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take door knocking and phone calls and donations, getting out talking to friends and family, helping register people to vote, putting out yard signs, donating your time and your money. All of those things from all of us is going to be so important. In my personal case, I've always run as though I'm 5 points behind, which is usually pretty accurate, actually. So this week, I have to be in Madison. As you probably heard, we're there to protect Governor Evers' veto because Republicans have a bunch of things that they would like to override the veto on. And in this last election, we knew that we had to get enough votes to prevent that. And my district was number 35, which is in terms of going from most Democratic to most Republican, and mine was like the last one where we actually won. In other words, districts 36, 37, 38, we didn't win. And so makes me feel kind of important, but also makes me feel like I got this target on my back, which is probably pretty accurate. But it's not just me who needs help. There's nearly 20 assembly districts throughout the third CD, including my fellow La Crosse representative, Jill Billings, and my colleague, Jody Emerson from Eau Claire. We need to hold these seats if we have any hope of getting the majority. So I want people to not, I want you to come and help me, but I want you to help them too. And it's not just those of us. We also need to look up and down the ticket. My good friend Brad Paff, he's up for re-election, and he needs your help. In fact, his Senate district includes my assembly district. So here's a double thing for you. If you want to come and knock on doors for me, you could also be knocking on doors for Brad at the same time and get a 2-for-1. So just saying, you could come. We just found out who Brad's opponent will be, and she is cut from the same cloth as Derek Van Orden, crazy cloth that is. We need Brad's brand of bringing people together in the Capitol, not his opponent's brand of divisiveness. Brad isn't the only Senate district in the third CD that's up for election. There's 4 different Senate seats that are at least partly within the third CD, and the Democrats running in each of those need your help. Speaking of the third CD, we have 3 great Democrats running against Derek Van Orden. We may each have our favorite, but in the end, we need to come together after the primary and kick DVO to the curb. So I saw my friend Katrina Shanklin over there. Katrina and I have worked together for more than a decade. I can honestly say she'd be a great member of Congress. So would Rebecca Cook. So would Eric Olson. We are so fortunate to have such a wealth of talent and quality. There is not a bad choice among them, unless you jump over to the Republican side. That's a really bad choice. It seems like every time we hear about DVO in the news, it's some fresh embarrassment to our state. It's time that we replace him with somebody who truly values Western Wisconsin, people who actually have always lived in Western Wisconsin, for example, and taking back the third CD has to be one of our top priorities. Of course, we have some other priorities too. Senator Tammy Baldwin's on the ballot this year. Her opponent, nice of him to move back from California or wherever he actually has been living all these years. She has been an inspiration to so many of us over the years, and we need to make sure that we send her back to Washington to keep doing all the things that she has been doing for us. And then, maybe you haven't heard a lot about this, but there's also a presidential election this year. And we need to send Joe Biden back to the White House. He has been getting things done since day one, despite a dysfunctional Congress. I mean, they give new meaning to the word dysfunctional out there. And a Supreme Court that seems out to get him. But regardless of what the other side throws at him, President Biden just seems to keep being able to get things done for us. Not with the help necessarily of Congress, because they're usually too busy fighting with each other, but he's just getting things done on his own. And I hope that in this next election, people realize we do functional things, they do dysfunctional things. We focus on solving problems, they focus on culture wars, and we need to get people to understand that if you want our country to move forward, elect Democrats. I mean, it's very simple. So let me end with this. I'm also a La Crosse County supervisor, and I was just reelected about 2 weeks ago. The local Republican Party spent over $10,000 for a county board race trying to unseat me. They spent more against me on this county board race than they ever have done before. Let me give you some context. There were only 855 votes cast in that election, and my opponent got only 355 of those. In other words, they spent nearly $30 for every vote that they got against me in that election. They are a well-funded machine. They are not afraid to spend, and they will spend big, and they will spend ugly. And just like us, the Republicans are gearing up for November right now, and if April is any indication, we're in for a long and ugly fight. And I don't need to tell you what kind of scary awaits us if we fail to deliver Wisconsin for Joe Biden or Tammy Baldwin, or if we let DVO keep his seat. I can certainly say that it's nothing good. So we need to get fired up, need to go out and fight like hell. Like I said earlier, my doors start next week, and I and everyone here needs your help. Come knock on doors with us, make phone calls, donate money. Together we can take back the state legislature, kick DVO to the curb, send Tammy and Joe Biden back to Washington, and in the process, we might just save democracy. Let's get to work. Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. I hope you're well. You know, when you turn on the news today, the world can seem like a pretty scary place. And sometimes, all you want to do is just put the covers back over your head and just hope that it'll all go away. But you didn't do that. You showed up here this morning. And let me be the first to say thank you. I am very grateful that you're here. I'm Brad Paff, and I want to share with you this morning a place that I love, a place that we call home, Western Wisconsin. Now, I don't like to brag, but I'm somewhat of an expert on this subject. You see, my family has been farming in this area since they first came to this country in the mid-1800s. 5 generations have called this area home. I grew up here. It is in this area that I met my beautiful wife, Betty. It is in this area that we raised our 2 children. And God willing, just maybe, someday there'll be grandkids that will play in these rolling hills. I love this area. This area means so much to me. There's no other place that I'd rather be. But that doesn't mean it's easy to make ends meet here. The people of this community, they work hard. They put in an honest day's work. Parents who get up at the crack of dawn and whose workday doesn't end until they tuck their kids in to bed at night. People who work with their hands, weld steel, pour concrete, drive truck. Those that care for our loved ones, our family farmers, that plow the fields, milk the cows. These people are the bedrock of our communities. That's the stock that I am from. They're honest, they're hardworking people. They do everything they can to make it, to provide for their family, and yet they still have time to give back to their communities. Because that's what we do here in Western Wisconsin. But all too often, in Madison, they don't keep up their end of the bargain. How do I know? Look at the roads that you drove in here today on. Need daycare for your kids? Good luck finding something at an affordable price. Let's talk about prescriptions. How about groceries? How about the price of gas that you put in your car? People need a break. And it's time for Madison to start treating Western Wisconsin like it's the most important part of Wisconsin. Because if you ask me, it is the most important part. Thank you. That means we need to expand Badger Care so more people can get access to the health care that they deserve. We need to cap the price of insulin, and we need to bring down prescription drug prices. We need to invest in manufacturing and technology so we can keep the good jobs right here. We need to ensure our state government prioritizes and buys products made from Wisconsin workers in Wisconsin factories in Wisconsin communities so we can keep the profits and the jobs right here. Thank you. And we must never, ever back down in our efforts to codify Roe v. Wade into law. Ever back down. We must work together to protect and defend a woman's right to choose. Now that may seem like some pretty basic stuff, but if you ask me, we need to get back to the basics. You listen to some of these politicians, and they'll scare the heck right out of you. All the anger, the finger pointing, the divisiveness. Now that may get the headlines, but that's not productive. And that's not me. You can call me old-fashioned, but I still believe in treating people with decency and respect. Treating your neighbor like they're your neighbor. After all, this is Western Wisconsin. We can work together. We can find common ground. And I firmly believe we can make Western Wisconsin and all of Wisconsin better off by sharing those values. This has been the fight of my life. And this is a fight that we have to win. I'm Brad Pfaff. I'm running for re-election to the Wisconsin State Senate, and I ask for your vote. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
But we are a community. It is not rural against city. It is all of us together and making sure that we're using those resources together. My journey started in healthcare when I was 19. I was studying economics down at UW-Madison, and I ended up having to have chest surgery. And so I had to have reconstructive surgery on my chest, and I got infections in both sides. So what was supposed to be one surgery ended up being 11 over 6 months. I came out of that with medical debt. At 19, I had to face the challenges of not only fighting for my life, but fighting for my finances. That's why I'm an advocate for Medicare for All, because it does make an impact. It is important. No one should have to go through that situation. I got a few seconds left?
Yep.
Look, we don't have to continue to struggle, but I'm confident that all of us together can be the progressive voice that we need to push back on the difficult issues that we have ahead of us. It's going to take all of us, and it's going to take Congress, it's going to take Tammy, it's going to take the Senate and the Assembly districts to push all of us forward. Not one of these candidates up here can do it alone. It's going to take us all. And so you have me as a fighter leading the way in whatever I can do to make sure that we are winning Assembly, Senate, we are making sure Tammy is elected, and that we are bringing it home for Biden, because we're going to have to get the young people out. And so I'm asking you to join me. Let's go fight like hell.
Thank you so much, William. It's great to be back here in Black River Falls today. Thank you so much to William Garcia, our hardworking and fearless third CD chair. And I know, and all the other folks that had a hand in planning today and making it such a great turnout. We've got a lot of standing room only in the back. So I also want to acknowledge my parents who are in the back of the room who came to support today. So I've met a lot of you over the past 3 years, and this room is full of some of the most active members in our Democratic parties throughout the third CD. You are why we successfully re-elected Governor Tony Evers, why we successfully elected Judge Janet, and why this fall we're going to make history electing the first woman to represent this district and making Derek Van Orden a one-term congressman. So since most of you have heard my stump speech or my story many times, I'm not going to bore you with that today, but I want to focus on what it's going to take to win this seat and to share a few stories with you from the past several months out on the campaign trail. So last summer when I announced my campaign, I spent the better part of it hosting cookouts in communities all throughout the third CD. And I very much tried my best to get to every single county fair. And a story that I'll share with you is I was in Richland County, a pretty rural part of our district, and I went to the Richland County Fair at the Dem booth, but I didn't stay at the Dem booth the whole time because folks that are at the county fair, they want to go on rides, they want to eat cheese curds, they're not necessarily there to talk about politics. So whenever I'm at the county fair, I make it a point to get out to the dairy and beef barns and to talk to farmers because otherwise it's tough to get connected with those folks sometimes because they're busy working on their farms. And I was walking through and I, would share, I used to show cattle just like you and handing out some of my lit pieces. And I handed it to one guy and he goes, "Well, what are you?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean, what am I?" And he said, "Are you a Democrat or are you a Republican?" And I said, "I'm a Democrat, but I'm a good one." And then he handed my lit back to me. And I said, "Well, hey, you haven't even listened to what I've had to say." And I said, my parents struggle with health care bills, and I want to expand Medicare to cover vision, dental, and hearing, the very things that deteriorate as folks age, so that our parents and our grandparents can age with dignity. And he said, "Well, yeah, that just makes sense." And then he grabbed my flyer back from me, and we had this long conversation. He's somebody that was a former Trump voter and doesn't feel like DC is something that he can connect with, that it's full of elites that are out of touch with working class people. And it's people like that man that we really have to work to influence, to share our democratic values about why that this is a party for working families, and to share what we have to offer for our rural communities. Last week, I visited a group of voters in Tomah, and I met Tony. Tony is a Navy veteran who has been supporting my campaign, but we hadn't yet met in person. Tony identifies as an independent. He told our coffee gathering he is most concerned about protecting freedoms, and he is most concerned about women's reproductive freedoms, and feels that overturning Roe v. Wade is turning our country back in time. He's also concerned about voting rights and the Republican Party's attempt to stifle folks from getting out to vote. He's embarrassed of Congressman Derek Van Orden and feels that he is not emblematic of our Western Wisconsin values. Tony is an independent we have won over for November. In this very room last fall, I met Allie. Allie is Chrissy O'Dean's daughter, who you all might know, but Allie is also a Republican. Allie is 25, disabled, and recently a homeowner. She works part-time as her disability allows at the local Schultz's Ace here in Black River, making $11 an hour. She'd love to go to college, but worries about taking on more debt when she now has a mortgage. Issues important to her are living wage, college debt, women's reproductive rights, and the availability and responsible stewardship of Medicare, Medicaid, and SSDI. When we met, she told me her party identity, and I promised her that the only way to turn our country around is to work together, that we've got to bleed a little purple to save our democracy. She later told her mom that she's voting for me because she gets us. This campaign has got to be about we and not me. And these kinds of stories are the exact kinds of voters that we need to pull into the big tent that we call the Democratic Party and off the sidelines. This is a district that voted for Obama before they voted for Trump. We can influence swing and independent voters with a working class message like mine. And statistically, we have to win this seat. I'm the daughter of dairy farmers and grew up in 4-H showing registered Holsteins. The first office I ever held was president of my 4-H club. And that bears a lot of clout to people in this district, and maybe even more than a career politician. I won 11 out of 19 counties in the primary last cycle because people saw themselves within me, having had to sell our cattle because of the price of milk and competition with larger dairies. My family has lived those same hardships like many in the third CD. As a small business owner, I've felt the effects of inflation. I've lost business to corporations selling cheap foreign goods and price gouging consumers off the backs of their workers. As a waitress, I understand the struggles of hourly work and what it means to earn a living wage. In Congress, I'll fight to get a $15 minimum wage passed and work to pass the PRO Act in Congress to restore worker power in Wisconsin and undo the work that Scott Walker and his cronies did with Act 10. You'll find that most of my primary opponents and I share similar policy beliefs. You can find the nitty-gritty of mine on my campaign page, which isn't written by my fancy consultants, it's in my own words. At the top is increasing healthcare access and affordability, all the more timely with the closing of HSHS Sacred Heart and St. Joe's in Chippewa Falls. Other priorities include restoring women's reproductive rights, improving water quality and investing in clean energy, strengthening our public education system, and addressing housing issues throughout the 3rd CD. Past these policy priorities and more comes down to who can take on Derrick Van Orden, and that's me. We have the resources to win. I've raised over $1.2 million since getting into this race, and that's with an average $53 average contribution. The support in my campaign comes from regular folks like you, many of you who have supported my campaign for Congress, not the dark money that DVO is funded by. We need those resources to be able to communicate with voters in a greater way and to get our message out. We have the infrastructure to win. We're already putting together our county captain program, expounding upon our successes last cycle that helped place me solidly 2nd place in the primary despite being significantly outspent by others. And finally, we have a message that can win, a message that pulls people off the sidelines, a working class message that leans into my background and personal narrative, but one that energizes people outside of the base of those of you in this room. And I look forward to working with each one of you as our campaign continues to barrel forward with strong momentum. We're in the midst of planning our 19 county district tour, recruiting our county captains, and moving into the phase of voter engagement. I'm so energized and excited to do this all with you and to flip this seat back to blue in November. So, thank you.
So I'm Katrina Shankland. I am a state representative, and I am running against Derrick Van Orden because we get one chance to take out an incumbent who will be House Republicans' top protect, even though he has failed us over and over and over again. And I am running because we need a battle-tested candidate who has won elections before and who has the experience of not only getting voters, independents and Democrats, and building a coalition to turn up the score in places like Portage County, where I'm from and who I represent, but also somebody who has gotten things done, who can serve as a strong contrast to Derrick Van Orden. So you all heard, thank you. You all heard Derrick Van Orden is a member of Congress who serves in the majority. Has he ever passed a bill into law? No. He's never passed a bill into law, and you can fact check me. Look this up, because if he introduced a bill with his name first, wasn't signed into law. And that says a lot, because when parties have a majority and there are freshmen who are vulnerable, they typically give them good bills and have them usher it through the legislative process. So it says a lot about House Republicans that they couldn't trust Derrick Van Orden to give them some of their best bills to at least pass through the House and Senate, right? So I am a state legislator who has passed 200 bills into law. And when I say that, you can fact check me on that too, because I was fact checked already, and the number just kept growing as Governor Evers continued to sign the bills that I was working on into law. Why is that important? Because if we're gonna take out Derrick Van Orden in November, we need somebody who serves as the sharpest contrast to him. We all know he doesn't represent us. We all know he loves to yell at teenagers in the White House and intelligence briefings, at the State of the Union, in the Capitol, and in the district at Prairie du Chien at a library. We know that about him. We know he doesn't have the temperament. We know he doesn't have the character to serve in Congress, but he also isn't working for us. He's gotten 0 bills passed into law that he introduced. He wants to gut Social Security, Medicare, and the Affordable Care Act, just like Donald Trump. And on top of that, our farmers in the 3rd Congressional District deserve to know that he wants to shut down $340 million in exports to China, comparing them to Nazi Germany. So if you're a soybean farmer or a dairy farmer or a dairy processor or somebody who just loves cheese, we should all be concerned about Derrick Van Orden's track record and failure to serve us and represent us in Congress. But we need somebody who can call him out on that and say, you know what, Derrick, you've been afraid to debate. We have Brad Pfaff here, who literally chased him around in a chicken suit and tried to force him to debate. And Derrick Van Orden dodged all accountability. This time we're not letting that happen. So that is why head to debatemederrick.com right now and you can sign up to ask Derrick Van Orden to debate me, because we know He's gonna run and hide every day of the week, but I'm gonna chase him and I'm gonna draw him out. He's in his little gopher hole right now. We're gonna bring him out. We're gonna send him back to Minnesota when we're done. I haven't just passed 200 bills into law. I built coalitions in the Capitol and in the district. So when I tell you I'm going to lower the cost of prescription drugs, you can believe me because I reached my hand across the aisle and I passed 3 bills into law to lower the cost of epinephrine and increase access to it across the state. When I tell you I'm going to fight like hell for clean water, for those of you who can't drink water from their taps because of PFAS and nitrate and bacteria contamination, you can believe me because I've passed 3 laws to support farmers with conservation and been a champion on expanding access to clean drinking water by launching a $10 million program with Governor Evers and the DNR to protect and support people who need treatment and new wells. And that's not all. When I tell you I'm going to fight for rural Wisconsin, you can believe me, and I have the election results to back it up. When Republicans targeted me the last 2 times, they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars against me. I didn't just win. I exceeded expectations, and here's how I did it. Wasn't alone. Portage County Democrats turned up and turned out, and we also built a coalition with independents and even some Republicans, including some lifelong Republican voters who did TV ads, radio ads, and mail for me and said, I support Katrina Shanklin because when I have a problem, she shows up. She's on the front line solving problems for our community, and that's who I want to represent me. So I didn't just win by double digits in 2020 and 2022, but last cycle, when I was one of the Republicans' top targets, I got more votes than any Democrat on the ballot in Portage County. And that is what we need to flip a district. That Donald Trump may have won, sure, but so did Janet Protasewicz by 10.6 points, you guys. We've got this. We are going to get Derek Van Orden to show up to debates. We are going to hold him accountable on his votes and his lack of values. We are going to make sure every voter in the 3rd and in Wisconsin and across the country knows that Derek Van Orden can go back to the private sector. He can be an actor and a writer. We don't care what, but he is not fit to represent Wisconsin values. There's so much on the line. Democracy, abortion, public education, funding at all levels, including our Universities of Wisconsin campuses across the state, especially in our most rural, underserved communities, healthcare access and prescription drug affordability, Social Security and Medicare. These issues matter, and we all deserve a champion. I pledge to you, I will be your champion and your voice in Congress. I am going to work day and night to find those voters in the Democratic Party and the independents and even some lean Republicans who've seen their party leave them. On democracy and freedom, we can win. And that's how I won and turned up the score in Portage County when Republicans targeted me, and that's how we'll win the 3rd. So in addition, thank you so much. We are going to work for Joe Biden and Tammy Baldwin and Brad Pfaff and Steve Doyle and Jill Billings and Jody Emerson and Jeff Smith. Because not only are every single one of those state legislators going to be top targets of Republicans now, we're going to make sure they go back to Madison and have Democratic majorities. But we're also going to fight like hell for all of our Democratic candidates down ticket who are working hard to flip seats. When I tell you I'm going to be there for them, you can trust me because I was in Monroe County knocking doors every single week in 2014 for Amy Sue Ruink, and I knocked doors in the 96th and the 92nd and the 93rd. Trempealeau County, multiple times trying to flip that district because Trump turned up the score there by 30 points in 2016. And the only way to minimize that is us showing up. So we're going to. And this campaign is built on addition and not subtraction. We're going to find new voters. We're going to find voters who don't always turn out, but will this time. We're going to find college students on college campuses and tell them what Republicans want to do to IVF and abortion and birth control. And we're going to talk about democracy every day of the week. So are you in it? Are you in it to win it, you all? We've got this. We are building a coalition, and I invite you to join me. I, as a state legislator, was in the Capitol protecting the governor's veto as often as possible whenever Republicans could potentially call us in for a veto override. I was there, and now that that's all over, I am here for all of you, and I will be with you every single day. So please let me know how I can help. I look forward to seeing you in your own community, and I want to thank you all for what you do. Let's win this, Wisconsin.
Thank you. Well, good morning, Bonjour, Peggy Flanagan, Adishnakaz, Gijuwe Wadamukwe, and to go, Gowabaga, Ganikagnan Dunjaba, Mayangan in your name. My name's Peggy Flanagan. My Ojibwe name is Speaks with a Loud and Clear Voice Woman. I'm a the person who was least surprised that that was my Indian name was my husband. And I'm a member of the White Earth Nation, which is the largest tribe in Minnesota, and my family is the Wolf Clan. And the role of our clan is to ensure that we're not leaving anyone behind, which is why I am a Democrat and why I am in Wisconsin today. So I know that we have some healthy rivalries between our two states, Vikings versus Packers, Badgers and Gophers, fountains and bubblers, right? But I jumped at the chance when the Biden campaign asked me to come here because I know that we share the same values of wanting to make sure that everybody has a fair shot and that working families have what they need to thrive, our young people can reach their full potential, and freedom, like actual freedom, unlike what the other guys are talking about, is something that we truly embrace. And so that's why I'm here, Wisconsin, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. And as your neighbor to the west, as was mentioned, I can tell you that I bring good news of how things can be. And I want you to know that it wasn't simply that we had one election and then everything worked out. Oh, how I wish that was the case. But we organized in 2022, in 2020, in 2016, and decades of building a foundation so that once we had a Democratic trifecta, we just ran as hard and as fast as we could to do good things for people. And when folks say, like, oh gosh, you did too much, we just did what we told you we were going to do. Like pass paid family and medical leave, ensure that every child in school can have breakfast and lunch at school, like no questions asked, right? Protecting access to reproductive health, a child tax credit that will lower child poverty by 30%, the largest investment ever in clean energy so we can get to 2040 and be a clean energy state. There are so many things that we did. But we did it because we did the work on the front end. In Wisconsin, you are on that path right now. I paid particularly, close attention to what happens in Wisconsin because one of my besties is your Lieutenant Governor, Sarah Rodriguez, and I think she'll be here shortly, so I'm excited about that. But this work is happening in Wisconsin, and it might seem a little slow. Hang in there, right? Hang in there because we are right on the edge. I think Ben Wickler and the Wisconsin Democratic Party, who are just doing the work, all of you have been playing the long game. Playing the long game, slowly winning races for governor, lieutenant governor, the Supreme Court that everybody was paying attention to, right? And finally getting new maps that undid decades of gerrymandering. So you have a fair shot at winning this thing, and I know how hard you are going to work, which is why I'm here. There is hope. But in order to keep this momentum in Wisconsin, and I think that, this season of progressive wins is right here, we have to make sure that we re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And And we have to make sure that we elect Democrats up and down the ballot, including right here in Wisconsin. This election is more than just policies. It is about the soul of our nation, the soul of our country. And I'd like to share with you, if I can, the first time that I met Joe Biden. The first conversation that I ever had with him was in his dining room when he was vice president, which is not like a usual beginning to a story. I get it. But I had traveled there for an event that was celebrating advocates of the Violence Against Women Act. I was there with David Wellstone, who is the son of our late great Senator Paul Wellstone. We all do better when we all do better. That is exactly right. And I told him my story. I told him my story of being a survivor of domestic violence and a child witness of abuse. And the care that this man showed me in that moment, holding my story, really seeing me for frankly the first time when I've told this story, and maybe 4 or 5 people knew. I was like, this man, the heart of this man, I will do everything I can to help him and support him. And I witnessed true kindness, not just being nice, but true kindness. So that's Joe Biden, a decent and caring guy, a big-hearted man. Now let's contrast that with the other guy, shall we? The Republicans are going to nominate a twice impeached, criminally indicted, disgraced, and defeated former President Donald Trump. And they're nominating Trump's MAGA Republican allies all across the country. He lies, he cheats, he steals to get ahead. And I will not forget that Donald Trump is a convicted abuser. He's in it all for himself, and he has shown us over and over and over again that is the case. We all lived through those 4 hours, I wish, 4 years when Trump was in office. Every day brought chaos and crisis and corruption as he put his own interests in front of ours. Remember going to sleep each night with a pit in your stomach, being like, what bizarro thing am I going to wake up to on Twitter? What world leader will he pick a fight with, right, just over ego? And as a mom, I had to go turn off the television every time he came on because I was afraid of what kind of bad behavior my child would witness or the foul, crude language that she would hear. So we've heard it so many times, but this election truly is the most important of our lifetime. And there are so many things that they have promised to do: repeal the Affordable Care Act, take away the rights of women and girls to make decisions about their own bodies and health care, stop parents from conceiving via IVF, shoot Americans in the street when they exercise their First Amendment right, give tax cuts to the wealthiest billionaires, trillion-dollar tax cuts that are in place right now, instead of supporting the middle class and folks who need that investment. And we never forget his pledge to be a dictator on day one. And even last night in Pennsylvania, he said, I would like to decide when the elections occur. He is telling us to our face what he will do. This isn't a law. And so that is why I am here to tell you that you all have a say. You all have a say in what can be our future. And we want to know, right, who's going to fight for us, for our families, for our future? The answer is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And let's remember that when Joe and Kamala took office, a deadly pandemic was raging. I lost my brother to COVID during the pandemic. Thousands of small businesses were shuttering forever. Millions of Americans were losing their jobs, and our democracy was hanging on by a thread. We were lurching from crisis to crisis, exacerbated by a chaos monster, and we were in desperate need of a steady hand and an opportunity to begin to heal ourselves and heal this country. And so now, 3 years later, we're in the middle of a great American comeback story. Joe, Kamala, and the Democrats are investing in the middle class, rebuilding our economy from the middle and from the bottom up, and there's hope in America once again. And Joe and Kamala have turned their hope into action. I want to give you a couple things that you could talk about with your neighbors, okay? So already, senior citizens are paying less for prescription drugs. The price of insulin is capped at $35, saving over 1 million Wisconsinites money every time they fill their prescriptions. Over 250,000 Wisconsinites have signed up for health care through the ACA. More than $6.6 billion have been invested in specific Wisconsin infrastructure projects, including rebuilding roads and bridges, public transit, ports and airports, and creating a clean water infrastructure. And my favorite project is the Blatnick Bridge. That is the lifeline, the heart, the connection between our two states, and we know how important it is. And Joe Biden has created more jobs in this economy than any other president ever. And I think that means something. So we've made real progress, but I know that there's more work to do, and we have 4 more years to keep doing the work. At kitchen tables across the country, families are having conversations about childcare, how they're going to make ends meet, what their future looks like. And I know that Joe Biden cares about those folks. Do you think Donald Trump ever worried about the cost of a new pair of shoes for his child? Do you think he ever actually took his child to buy a new pair of shoes? Do you think he actually spends time with his child? I don't know. That's right, but he can't imagine what it's like to be a parent barely just getting by, but Joe Biden can, and I think that matters. He is us. He knows us. And as a Anishinaabe-Kwe, as a Native woman, I can tell you that the fact that he's an elder is something to be respected and revered. So I'm going to share one more story before I wrap up, because this is what it feels like everything is on the line. And I know you know this. But I want to put a little gas in your tank, right, for the next several months when we're calling folks and knocking on doors and doing the work that is so important. So in summer of 2022, I was running for re-election with the governor. We had the Painters Union filming a campaign commercial. I had makeup and all the things were happening. And it was a great day until I got a phone call that Roe had been overturned. And in that moment, I did what I needed to do, which was call my mom. And my mom said, well, I've prepared you your whole life for this moment. And in her way of being so buck up, kiddo, right? I wiped the tears from my face and got focused about what we needed to do to win that election in Minnesota, to protect each other and to care for one another. And we were victorious. And it is that same kind of motivation that brings me here to Wisconsin today. And as the mom of a daughter, I do not want her to have fewer rights than I did or fewer rights than her grandmother did. And that's just real. And we have to be unafraid to talk about it. But it is also an honor that every generation we get to tend to and fight for our democracy. And we must ensure that we are building our generation of young people to know the Democratic Party is a place for them, and that Joe and Kamala will have their back and they can make decisions themselves about how and when and if to start a family, about which books to read, and that they can cast a ballot knowing that there will not be obstacles that are thrown up in their way, because we simply value the right that we fought for, the right to vote. So are y'all with me? All right. So I am so grateful for every one of you for being willing to be in this space. This is one of the only convention spaces I've ever seen that has windows, so good for you. But coming together with your friends and neighbors, being willing to knock that extra door, make that extra call, have that conversation about what's at stake, but also about your hopes and dreams for yourselves, for your neighbors, for the future of Wisconsin and this entire country. I know that Wisconsin will be blue and will deliver for Democrats this fall, and I'm honored and humbled to be a small part of it. Thank you so much. Gitchimigwech. I appreciate you. Thank you.
actually a mental health therapist. So I'm really used to one-on-one talking to people about what they care about, what they struggle with, why there might be struggling in this world right now and all the challenges that we have. And that is actually what brings me here. I personally was struggling after that man who shall not be named became the president. The challenges in my office became less about really individual concerns, but felt like global concerns. People were sad, more depressed, more despairing, and it was like I didn't even know quite what to do. And on top of it, I was struggling. I have 6 kids. I grew up on a farm, a dairy farm, where we just treated each other really well. And I just couldn't quite wrap my brain around like what was going on in this world. I felt like it was a world I kind of didn't recognize. And so I was getting down. And nobody wants a depressed therapist. So I had to figure out what to do, literally. So I had to decide, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to help? And that was the place that I really started to energize. I have always cared about my community. I've been the girl that did the mission trips when I was young and did the crop walk, if y'all remember those days. And so I was the one that had been a Girl Scout leader, and I decided to start a nonprofit. A nonprofit that brought our community together. It didn't matter what age you were. It didn't matter if you were red or blue. We just came together and we lifted up our town. It was called Lift Lodi. I live in Lodi. And so we brought together people that wanted to just care about our community. The first year we had 200 volunteers. The second year, 250 volunteers. And then the third year, people said, Sarah, you need to do more. We need you in office. And I said, holy buckets. I don't know. Thought about that, talked to a lot of people, and people were just so willing to have a fresh voice. Somebody that just maybe didn't know all the lingo and didn't know all the things, but was willing to learn and really care, really want to listen. And I have a history of knowing how to listen because I don't know who comes in my office, what their concerns are, or what their political party is, but I know that we all have a heart that wants to care about each other at most levels and want things better for ourselves. So I then agreed to do a race for the assembly in a very red district, and then the maps changed. And the maps changed so much that I was now in a lean slightly blue Senate district, and they said, Sarah, we want you there. And so I am brand new. I went from a minus 18 red district that I was running in to a plus 3 blue district. It's 3 times as big. I have so much to learn. Thank you so much for letting me be here today. I'm really excited about being maybe a fresh voice, somebody that cares obviously about our mental health, cares about reproductive freedoms, cares about expanding Medicaid for all of those that are not being receiving the care that they need, and doing all the things that I can as somebody that wants to uplift the middle class. That's what I grew up as, and that's what I want to continue to lift up, and to protect our rural communities. That's really important to me. I grew up in Cashton, Wisconsin, if anybody knows where that is. Yeah, Cashton. Yay, Cashton. So thank you all for having me. Thank you for listening to me, and please, if you can, check me out on the website. It's Kieski for Wisconsin WI. So there's a yes in the middle of my name, so that's what I'm going for. A yes, progressive meeting, going for new values, rural, liberal values, progressive values in the state of Wisconsin in the 14th district. Thank you.
Well, hello, 3rd Congressional District. So good to be home, as a 5th generation Wisconsinite from Western Wisconsin. Whenever I'm anytime in the 3rd CD, I'm like in heaven. So it is so good to be here, but never in a million years did I think I would be standing here as your Secretary of State. And I don't know if you heard the story, so I'll quickly share it. I get a call that the governor wants to see me. And I share this with my husband, and he's like, "Are you in trouble, Sarah? Like, did he tell you to prep for anything?" And I go, "No, so maybe I am in trouble." And I fast forward, I sit down, I meet with the governor, and he's like, "Sarah, Secretary La Follette has unexpectedly resigned, and I have an opportunity to appoint somebody." So I immediately start thinking of people that Governor Evers could appoint, and he looks at me and he goes, "I'm looking at her right there. It's you." I, of course, immediately said yes, but during that moment, I failed to do two things. The first was say, "Well, can I maybe talk to my husband before I take this statewide gig?" And then the second part of it was, "When do you need me to start?" And so I come home and my husband was like, "So, are you appointed to a task force? Are you in trouble? Like, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no." And he's like, "Well, what is it, Sarah?" And I'm like, "You're looking at your new Secretary of State." And he looks at me just floored and he goes, "No shit." He was just mind blown. And then he follows up and he goes, "So when are you going to start so we have some time to get our life together for this statewide position?" And I go, "Yeah, on Friday." And he's like, 48 hours Friday? And I'm like, "Yep, 48 hours Friday." So there I was Friday morning trying to get my son out to daycare, and I get a knock on the door, and it's the chief counsel for the governor. And I'm like, "Mel, what are you doing here?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm here to swear you in." And I go, "Wait, it's not like a ceremony with the Chief Justice and Wisconsin Eye?" And they're like, "Nope, we're swearing you in right now, right here." And so there I was taking the oath of office in my Packer pajamas, which I don't think it gets any more Wisconsin than that. But I will tell you, since now it's been about a year, walking into that office was yet just another demonstration of how terrible the Republicans are, whether it's with these power grabs to affecting our democracy. You know, when I started, there were literally boxes that records that needed to be digitized and organized. We were in a backlog that was a month plus when it came to international documents that we are the only authority that can sign them and manage them. To literally, we were still using a seal for the thousands of documents that we seal from 1881 that was older than the state capitol. And my staff were using their own personal resources to do state business because the Republicans have literally defunded this office. It had nothing to do with, people not wanting to do the work. These are civil servants who deeply care about Wisconsin. But it was because the Republicans are like, "You know what? The way that we can stop them from doing the good work is defunding them." But we're not going to let them win. I am really proud from simply just grit and, being Western Wisconsin scrappy. We have addressed the backlog. We've cut our wait times in half. We now have started to digitize our records because government should be transparent for the people of Wisconsin. And on top of that, we've made this an office that's going to stand there when it comes to defending and strengthening our democracy. We're not going to look the other way. So when the fake electors turn in falsified documents to my office, we're going to hold them accountable and call on Robert Spindell to resign. Because literally, when you've got a guy that's willing to put his personal preference above the will of the people and is on our Wisconsin's election commission, that's just not wrong. That needs to be removed immediately. And we deserve better here in Wisconsin. And we're not going to stop fighting for that. But speaking of people, too, who only care about themselves, you might have heard of these folks running called Donald Trump and Derek Van Orden, where literally the campaigns for these guys are only about me when we need them to be thinking about we And we have seen this. You know, Donald Trump wasn't in Wisconsin for over 2.5 years because he's been too busy peddling his latest Bible gimmick or trying to sell $399 sneakers that Wisconsin families can't afford, or sitting in court because he's been convicted of over 88 criminal charges. You know, it's clear this guy doesn't care about Wisconsin. It's about him. Or we've got Derek Van Orden, who literally moves to the district because he sees it as some sort of political opportunity. And then we see this guy, and he is attacking kids, whether it's in his community library because of the LGBTQ books that were on display, and screaming at a teenager who was volunteering in that library, to screaming at kids in the Capitol, yelling profanity at them, to literally taking a gun and trying to get it through airport security when that guy knows better. You know? I mean, it's clear this guy doesn't have Western Wisconsin values, because we wouldn't act like that if you were from Western Wisconsin. You would actually have integrity, and you care about your communities and your kids, and you want to help your neighbor, which candidly is not what Derek Van Orden has done to date. And we have seen this in their records. You know, Donald Trump and Derek Van Orden are the people who want to cut our Social Security after it's an entitlement that you've earned. They've talked about cutting the Affordable Care Act, which literally hundreds of thousands of Wisconsinites rely on. And they've talked about this tax plan that they really care about. When we know Donald Trump's tax plan only helped the wealthy 1% and gave Amazons of the world these tax breaks, so yet my parents, who are retired public school teachers from Eau Claire, pay more in taxes than Amazon CEOs and the companies. That's not right. It's not right. And so we, though, have a real opportunity now to change this. And it's all relying on us here in Western Wisconsin, because everything is really on the shoulders of a lot of you today. Whether it is the road to the White House runs through Western Wisconsin, to we've got to get Tammy Baldwin elected, which is also critical to controlling the Senate, to literally Congress is being held by a shoestring by one Republican vote that you can fix right here in the 3rd Congressional District. Because whether it is, you know, reproductive rights, as a woman now who stands here with fewer rights than my mother and my grandmother, and knowing that they have talked about a national ban on abortion or coming after contraceptives or IVF, to what we've seen when they favor polluters over our environmental policies, to the work that we are seeing when it comes to, again, our economic security. And so there is a lot at stake. And when you look at it, we won 2020 by just 20,000 votes. And if you would put those votes across the entire state, it is only a few votes per ward. That's it. Three votes. And so the work that you are all doing today is so very critical, because we as Democrats know you can't just show up in our communities and expect people to vote for us. We got to work for it. We got to show them what we mean. We got to listen, and we got to deliver. And I know between now and November, that's exactly what you all are working on doing, because I know together we can flip the 3rd CD, we can send Tammy back to the U.S. Senate, and we can sell Joe Biden and Kamala Harris back to the White House, because all of you. So thank you guys for having me. It's so great to be home, and let's bring this home in November. So thanks again, everyone.
So thank you very much. Thank you to William, even though you put me on the agenda right after Sarah. I am grateful for your leadership and all the effort that you put into this, all the people who helped plan the convention. Special shout out to Jackson County Dems for hosting us. This is a beautiful place, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much. Did you hear? We have new maps in Wisconsin. It's pretty exciting. I believe that it is not enough that we just have those new maps. I believe that we have an obligation now to take the baton that has been passed to us by the plaintiffs in the case. My friend Nathaniel Slack down in Vernon County, all of the plaintiffs, the attorneys, and our great Governor Tony Evers, who signed the new maps into law. We owe them a debt of gratitude, first and foremost. And I believe we have an obligation to take the baton and now run strong Democratic candidates across the board in all 99 seats if possible and take back the majority for Democrats. And that is the work that begins right now. And in the 96th district, I am very proud to be a lifelong Democrat running for the new 96th Assembly District. I had the privilege of serving on the La Crosse County Board, representing the town of Shelby for 20 years, 9 of those years as chair of the county board, and we got shit done, right? This is what happens at the local level. Let me ask a quick question. Those of you who were on the ballot on the April 2nd ballot, will you just raise your hand? Look at all these people. Thank you. This is how it starts also, right? It is so important that we are working up and down the ballot to get good Democrats elected throughout the 3rd CD, throughout the state of Wisconsin. And that's part of the work that I am proud of also. I have spent the last 23, 25 years helping local electeds getting them recruited, training them, helping them win their elections. That is good, important work. That is infrastructure, right, for our party, is making sure that we are electing good folks at the local level. Right now, the 96th district is represented by a guy named Lauren Oldenburg, who, yeah, that's good. Thank you for that. Let me try that again. A guy named Lauren Oldenburg. Thank you. And the old district had Crawford County and a very red part of Monroe County with Vernon County. And Lauren was maybe an okay fit for the old 96th, but he in no way reflects the values of the new, beautifully blue, bifurcated 96th district, meaning about 50% of the voters are in the southern tier of La Crosse County, about 50% in Vernon County. That is the seat that we are going to take back, starting right now. And thank you. Just a quick 2 notes about Lauren. 2018, he was elected, and we have been working hard to find, I think we found 2 votes in his 6 years in the Assembly where he did not vote exactly the same as Robin Voss. That's who we're dealing with, and that's why we're going to flip this district. He does not reflect the values. I have worked hard as a Democrat for many, many years, worked at the county level where we are getting things done, where you work with everybody, right? At the county level, it is nonpartisan, and you do what needs to be done to pass balanced budgets, to lower taxes, which is what we did. We extended union contracts for our employees back when Act 10 was on the doorstep. I'm very proud of that. I'm a proud former AFSCME member. I'm married to a union electrician who proudly wears his 50-year IBEW pin. This is what I bring to this seat and to the 96th and to this new district that deserves representation, that reflects all of our values. And I would love your support and appreciate very much the opportunity to introduce myself to you today. Let's finish the job and win these seats in our new blue maps.
Hey everybody, thank you for having me and allowing me to speak today. I sincerely appreciate it. This is all new for me. This is a new venture in politics, so it's really neat to come in here and see all you wonderful people and how excited everyone is. And thank you for the work that you've done on getting these new maps, right? I had been thinking about running for this seat for quite some time, several different cycles, and was going to do it anyway, but definitely these maps are definitely going to make it easier to turn this seat blue, so thank you. Just a little bit of history about the 96th seat. From the best information that I can find, this seat has been held by a Republican since 1952. Yeah, 73 years of this being read. So this is pre-maps, all of those things, but we are in a good position to turn that over. As I've gone through this process, there's usually 2 questions that people like to ask, right? First of all, why are you running? And some people, I think they want to know your platform, they want to know what you stand for. I think other people just want to decide how crazy this person actually is, right? That's willing to get into politics and willing to do these things. And I had that question posed to me by someone who's been a very valuable part of my campaign. And it's very interesting because she did this kind of at the beginning of all this. And I do nightly readings every night, and the very night that she asked me that question, this was the reading. So I have charity, another word for love. It's the kind of love that is not selfish passion, but an unselfish, outgoing desire to help other people, to do what is best for the other person, to do what is best for him or her above my own desires. To put God first, the other person second, and myself last. Charity is gentle, kind, understanding, long-suffering, and full of desire to serve. What I do for myself is lost. What I do for others may be written somewhere in eternity. So for me, that's why I'm running, right? I've been very fortunate in my life to get to the point in life that I'm at. The second thing that people ask is, so why a Democrat? Why are you running as a Democrat? Other than duh. I mean, I think that's that, you know, but I thought long and hard about this. But other than duh, the other easy explanation that I came up with was that I'm a product of democratic ideals. Right? I grew up as a poor kid in a trailer court on the south side of Viroqua. I ate government cheese, and I ate ketchup and Miracle Whip sandwiches and all those types of things, which are actually pretty good if you never. I'd come home and there would be Toys for Tots that were on the steps, because back then they didn't do the brand new toys and the fancy things. They would dump a box of used toys on your doorstep. But that was to me still that exciting. I grew up wearing the medical assistant's glasses that were way too big for my face, that only a mother could love, but they allowed me to see, right, which I couldn't have done otherwise. I received Pell Grants while attending UW La Crosse. So why am I running as a Democrat? So I am the person that I am because of a democratic ideal of caring for our citizens, right? For taking care of people, offering help to people that might need help. Because of the assistance I received, I have built an amazing life for myself. I have started and operate 2 businesses in the 96th district. I have taken that and other democratic ideals and put them into action in my life. I am now ready to take those ideals to Madison and share them with the constituents of the 96th district. I believe my lifelong involvement in the communities of our district gives me an excellent perspective to understand our area's issues and concerns. A quote that has really been important to me in my life is from Gandhi, just the very simple, be the change you wish to see in the world. Right? And that's what I'm looking to do. And we have work to do. When my young daughter, who's 9 years old, has fewer rights to make decisions for her body than her mother did or her grandmother did, we have work to do. When people are one severe illness away from being kicked out of their home or whatever that may be because they can't afford to pay for these things, we have work to do. We have a housing crisis, childcare crisis, all of these issues that need to be addressed. And to me, that's Democrat, right? That's a democratic ideal of taking care of people. I see you over there creeping in. We still have work to do, okay? And I am here for it. I am here for it. I am in it. I am ready. I am here to fight for those who need a voice. I am here to share the blessings I've received and to give back to the world that has given me so much. I hope you'll help me. Thank you.
My name's Terry Schoonover. I'm running for the newly drawn Wisconsin Assembly District 29 seat in western Wisconsin. That district includes all of Buffalo and Pepin, and the majority of Pierce and Trempealeau counties. 4 weeks ago, I was planning a quiet, relaxing summer on our prairie. Then I got a call from my friend Bruce Johnson, Pepin County Dems chair, who put a bug in my ear about considering a run for the 80-29, saying we needed a good candidate. After a couple of other folks talked to me about it, I decided to call an activist who I thought should be the one to run, to see if she would be willing to lead the charge. In my opinion, we need more diversity, more women in Madison. She indicated she was not ready to commit to running for a state office. When I told her we don't need another old white guy, she said, diversity is great, we need some wins too. I registered and announced my candidacy on April 1st because number one, I've got a good sense of humor. Number two, I live in a conservative district and it may describe me more accurately than I care to admit. I was born in Marshfield, Wisconsin, grew up in nearby Loyal. I was employed at Mayo Clinic for 20 years, where I worked closely with city and county law enforcement, fire departments, EMS, and public health as an emergency management coordinator. I retired in 2017. At that time, my wife Renee and I moved into our home between Alma and Cochrane, what we call the west coast of western Wisconsin. In the past few years, we worked hard to restore 25 acres of highly erodible bluff land into wild prairie. A person needs to be willing to invest time, energy, and be patient. Given proper care, the ecosystem thrives. There is a connection between our land and our politics. Once degraded, both take time and effort to restore. I will bring that same level of commitment to represent the 29th Assembly District in Madison. My involvement in Wisconsin politics began with local advocacy for fair electoral maps. In 2021, a group of us approached the Buffalo County Board of Supervisors requesting a referendum on fair maps be added to the April 2022 ballot. It passed with 68% of the voters, both Republicans and Democrats, responding yes. We want fair maps. Later that November at the state capitol, I testified in front of a Senate committee about the importance of fixing our heavily gerrymandered maps. I lean left. I have many friends who lean right. Being the oldest of 9 siblings, my family, like much of our country, is spread across the political spectrum. I value discussing and considering diverse opinions. I'm not afraid to reach across the aisle. What makes me think I can flip a seat in conservative part of the state? 2 months ago, Wisconsin passed new legislative maps. I attended one of Governor Evers' signings in Hudson. What a day. Our new maps bring renewed hope to tackle inadequate funding for our schools, the healthcare desert in our region, and restoring trust in our elections. New maps are energizing voters who in the past felt there simply wasn't a chance to win, no matter how strong a candidate. Our new maps will be bringing new faces to Madison. I'm asking the voters of the new 29th and you out there in the audience to help me be one of those new faces. So, for the next 7 months, I'm all in. For Assembly District 29, for Wisconsin, for our country, for my grandkids. Now I have a note here. Look over to my left and I can see he's quickly approaching me, so I'm going to speed this up. In the prairie restoration world, there's a saying that typifies our mindset, something I hope to bring from our prairie to the political landscape at our state capitol. When we heal our land, we heal ourselves. Thank you for letting me introduce myself and my campaign.
It's nice to meet a lot of new people, a lot of folks I actually haven't met yet today. So my name is Christian Phelps, and I am a candidate for Wisconsin's new 93rd Assembly District. I was born in 1993 in Eau Claire and raised in west central Wisconsin. Every time I've tried to leave the region for college or a job or grad school, first of all, I always end up coming back. And I also find that I spend an incessant amount of time bragging about Western Wisconsin. And I know the pain of growing up in a community that isn't always free of discrimination as an LGBTQ child in Western Wisconsin, but I also know deep in my soul the sharp and sort of sometimes a little off-kilter, deeply progressive energy that lives in the very foundation of this region. It's something that not many people on the coasts know or assume about us because our political reputation falsely conveys who we are. I felt that energy at 17 when Scott Walker, our 93rd Assembly incumbent Representative Warren Petrick, and the corporate greed cronies took over power and unleashed an unprecedented attack on the public schools that were raising me and my peers. When hundreds of us organized walkouts of our schools and went to Madison and joined a global community of pro-democracy champions that were saying no to Act 10. And I felt it in 2020 when a multiracial and multi-generational coalition of us stood up against police brutality to chant and demand in no uncertain terms that in our communities, Black lives matter. And I know that in 2024, when we put democracy into action and turn the page on Warren Petrick and on Derek Van Orden and on corporate greed in Wisconsin generally, to finally build a reputation we can live up to in our increasingly diverse and energized and mobilized communities, we're going to feel that same energy again. When we put investments in public education and transportation and public health and family farms at the center of the election, when we win these elections and give Western Wisconsin a form of governance that doesn't stifle our grassroots movements or our true energy, but actually empowers it instead. So thank you very much for giving me a couple minutes of your time.